Good morning, English 2. It's Mrs. Clyde. We are going to continue on into Act 3 today. I know that it's a little bit different as far as I'm not live, but you're going to be watching video recordings of me, okay? If you notice, because I know yesterday there was a couple of questions about when Act 3 would be due. If you noticed in Buzz, I did move Act 3 to be doing on Thursday. Okay, so you should see that in your Buzz schedule as far as what's due. And then I moved Acts 4 and 5 to being due on Monday. All right, Monday the 13th. So that gives us plenty of time, okay, to finish reading and unpacking Act 3, and then also reading and really analyzing Acts 4 and 5. All right, so that is taken care of in Buzz. You should see it. As far as what we're going to do today, we are just going to finish really working through Act 3, Scene 1, kind of left off, right, after Caesar had just died, and we heard that famous line, right, et tu, Brute, and then Caesar falls and he dies. Just as a reminder, I'm sure you can't forget that moment, but I also wanted to remind you that while you should be taking character notes, okay, that Act 3, remember, is really focusing on those 3 appeals, okay? So let's go in here. We talked about them. I just want to remind you of them, okay? We talked about them towards the end of last week, and we were talking about appeals to reason, appeals to emotion, and appeals to ethics, right? So the appeal to reason is specifically like facts and statistics, right? It's like a logic kind of conclusion. Like if 9 out of 10 people believe this, that's like an appeal to reason, right? You should be smart and do this too. Everyone else is doing it. Someone might try to reason with you like that. There's also an appeal to motions. So remember we said that a lot of people, sometimes your heart leads how you're feeling, right? And sometimes your emotions will overcloud the thinking in your head, and you'll go with how you're emotionally feeling. And then the last one is an appeal to ethics. Okay, so it's like a sense of right and wrong. Sometimes that comes up about like a person's specific values. Maybe it's associated with like the religion that they participate in. It might be associated with the community that they belong in, right? Those types of things all influence our ethics and what we personally feel is like right or wrong when we make choices. And so the assessment in Act 3, again, is really going to be focusing on those, all right? You can work on filling out the graphic organizer, okay, just to help you in terms of who is loyal to who, okay? Remember that that's in the beginning, but then also, again, down in the bottom, there's these examples that you're going to have to decide about in terms of who's using what type of appeal in the speech, particularly with Brutus and Antony. So where did, when Brutus talks, and we're going to look at this here very shortly, when Brutus talks and he's using an appeal to emotion, where is that? When Brutus talks and he's using an appeal to reason, where is that? Okay, same thing with Antony. Where is he using emotion in his speech? Where is he using ethics? Maybe talking about their community values, what they believe in. Okay. So we did talk about that last week, but I know sometimes it's like a long weekend. Today's Tuesday, and you're like, what? So I just wanted to remind you. Okay, and we talked about you could definitely, the graphic organizer, that I had shared with you in Act 1. Remember, we talked about making a copy of it. A lot of you did that for the Act 2 characters. And then you can do the same thing for Act 3, make a copy, and then you would just need, when you change out the characters, you also need to add these in, okay? These, again, these appeals to ethics, emotion, or reason, these are what you're really going to hone in on during the assessment. All right, so we are going to look more. I don't want to come to this part yet. We're going to just read today, okay? And then you can be making notes in your graphic organizer as we go along. All right, so when we left off, we literally left off at the moment that Caesar fell, right? Everyone attacked him and he dies. So now we're going to see like all of their kind of reactions and how everyone responds to Caesar being dead. So I'm going to read you today the modern translation, just as a reminder, and then tomorrow we'll talk about the Shakespearean language, okay? So Cena says, liberty, freedom, tyranny is dead, run and proclaim it in the streets. Cassius says, some should go to the public platforms and cry out liberty, freedom, and democracy. Okay, well, democracy is a real interesting word right there, right? In terms of what we feel is democracy. I don't know if we necessarily just kill our leaders and democratic rule when we don't agree with something, but we can come back to that. There's like some confusion, right? People are kind of like a little overwhelmed about, oh my gosh, there was just this mutiny and they killed him. And some citizens and senators like leave the stage, okay? Brutus is like calling after them and he's like, people, senators, don't be afraid. Don't run away. Stay where you are. Only Caesar had to die for his ambition. This is like an important moment, right? Because these people are leaving. Obviously, they don't agree with maybe what happened to Caesar. They're worried now. And we talked about this in the beginning of Act 3 and a little bit in Act 2 about like, well, if you're willing to kill one person, right? Where do you draw the line? What makes you not willing to kill the next? And how does that member like not like build and grow quite a bit? So that's a very real fear that some of these citizens and other senators, like other community leaders, are like, I don't want to be the next one on the chopping block, right? So they're taking off, they're exiting. Excuse me. Casca says, go to the platform, Brutus. And he says, and Cassius too, and where's Publius? Here, he's completely stunned by this mutiny. Metellus says, stand close together in case someone loyal to Caesar tries to. Brutus says, don't talk about standing together. Publius, cheer up. We don't intend to harm to you, nor to anyone else. Tell them this. So some people, right, are again bringing up the idea about like, what if someone tries to come back at us because they don't agree with what we did and they liked Caesar? And Brutus says, oh my goodness, that's not going to happen. We're not going to harm anyone else. We're going to find out what they're going to do. Cassius says, leave us, in case the people storming us should harm you. And Brutus says, do so, and let no one suffer for this deed except us, the perpetrators. So he exits, and Trebonius enters. Cassius says, where's Antony? And remember, they were talking about like being concerned on Mark Antony's reaction, right? Trebonius says he ran to his house stunned. Men, wives, and children stare, cry out, and run in the streets as though it were doomsday. So the citizens